You know how a certain smell can just hit you and bam, you're right back in your childhood? It's powerful stuff. But what if that feeling wasn't just a trip down memory lane? What if it could actually be the spark for a whole new way of looking at the world? Well, that's exactly what happened for a philosopher named Walter Benjamin, and his story shows how a simple memory can become a truly revolutionary act.
Okay, picture this. It's Berlin, the year 1900. An 8-year-old Walter Benjamin is in his room, and somewhere in the house an apple is baking in the oven. Now, when he wrote about this decades later, he said that smell wasn't just sweet. For him, it was almost like a premonition. He felt like that one aroma held the entire blueprint for his day, and maybe even his entire life. Everything from the comfort of his home to the hassles of school and all the disappointments that were still to come.
So was he just getting lost in some bittersweet nostalgia? Not even close. He was doing something way more radical. He was flipping the whole idea of nostalgia on its head, and he was asking this really profound question. What if looking back at the past isn't about escaping the present, but about arming yourself for the future?
To really get what Benjamin was up to, you have to understand the world he came from and the incredible circle of thinkers he inspired. They became known as the Frankfurt School. And these guys, well, they were a generation born into a gilded cage who decided to spend their lives trying to tear it down.
And here's the central irony of the whole thing, which is just fascinating. These were the kids of Germany's new super-rich industrial class. I mean, they were living lives of absolute luxury. And what did they do? They dedicated their entire careers to taking apart the very capitalist system that built their comfortable world.
I mean, just look at the lineup. You've got Max Horkheimer, his dad owned a factory. Theodor Adorno, son of a wine merchant. And of course, Walter Benjamin himself, whose father was a big-shot art dealer. These were the literal sons of industry. They grew up with all the finer things in life, but they had, let's say, zero interest in the family business. In fact, they got this deep-seated feeling that there was something fundamentally wrong with the world that was paying for it all.
And listen, this wasn't just some casual disagreement with their dad's jobs. No, this was a profound, deep-seated rebellion. This quote here just captures it perfectly. They were fixated on dismantling the very system their fathers had mastered. It was a full-on generational revolt against the whole bourgeois world they grew up in. But, you know, a rebellion needs a strategy.
So how do you even begin to critique an entire system? For Benjamin, the answer was to completely rethink our idea of history itself. He totally rejected that neat and tidy story of constant progress we're always told. Instead, he decided to look for answers where absolutely no one else thought to look. You know, the official version of history, the one written by the winners, it doesn't have much room for the losers, for failed inventions, for things that just fall out of fashion. Benjamin's whole method was to do the exact opposite. He wanted to dig through the trash heap of the past, to find the real truth hidden in the ruins and forgotten junk that capitalism just leaves behind. Growing up, Benjamin was obsessed with this bizarre contraption called the Kaiser panorama. Just think of it like an early, kind of 3D movie experience. You'd sit there and watch these stereoscopic pictures of faraway places just sort of trundle by. For a minute there, it was the absolute cutting edge of entertainment. But, and this is key, by the time Benjamin was visiting it, it was already on its way out. It was becoming obsolete. As he put it, fashion was turning its back on the whole thing. He got to see it in this kind of sad twilight, a piece of technology that was already heading for the scrap heap of history.
And here is the light bulb moment. For the adult Benjamin, this forgotten toy wasn't just a quirky childhood memory, it was a perfect metaphor. The Kaiser panorama showed you the world as just a series of disconnected, pretty pictures that just wash over you. You're a totally passive consumer. And that, he argued, is exactly how capitalism wants us to see history. Not as something we're a part of, something we can change, but as a spectacle to just consume. An endless loop of new stuff replacing old stuff, all designed to keep us distracted and dreaming instead of waking up and acting.
Now, this might all seem very abstract, but for Benjamin, it was incredibly urgent. I mean, the year he was writing this memoir about his childhood, it was 1932. He wasn't just messing around with theories. He was bracing himself for a catastrophe he could see coming from a mile away.
As a Jewish intellectual and a communist in Germany at that time, Benjamin knew he was on a list. He knew he'd be forced to flee his home. So he deliberately brought up these detailed memories of his childhood, not to escape into them, but to inoculate himself. It was like a vaccine. He believed that if he confronted his past head-on, he could control the pain of losing his home before it could control him.
This slide really just lays it all out. You take his contemporary Marcel Proust. Proust famously used memory to try and escape time, right?
to recreate a lost paradise from his past. Benjamin did the exact opposite. He searched his past not for an escape route, but for clues, for the traces of what was to come, because he was hoping to somehow redeem the future.
And this is the crucial point. His whole project wasn't just about his personal feelings of loss. He was basically performing an autopsy on his entire social class. Through his own memories, he was diagnosing why that comfortable bourgeois world of his youth wasn't just gone for him. It was a historical dead end. It was a world that was socially and necessarily doomed to vanish.
So what's the lasting impact of all this? What did it all lead to? Well, Benjamin's strange, revolutionary way of looking at memory and history and culture, it became the foundation for a really powerful new intellectual tool.
And this is his legacy, critical theory. At its heart, it's a method for questioning the stories that we're told are true. It challenges the official version of history, the official version of culture, to try and uncover the hidden power dynamics and unspoken rules that are really running the show. All the stuff we just take for granted as the way things are.
And why do that? Well, Benjamin believed that capitalism keeps us in a kind of dream-filled sleep, just distracting us with shiny new things and empty promises of progress. Critical theory is the alarm clock. Its entire purpose is to wake us up from that collective dream so we can finally see the world as it actually is.
This quote from Benjamin it sums up the entire project. It's a call to action. It's about critically looking at the world we've inherited, refusing to just accept its values as the only way, and daring to imagine that something different is possible.
And that really just leaves us with a final thought. If Benjamin could look back at the world of his childhood and see the seeds of its own destruction, it kind of forces us to ask ourselves, right? What about our time? What technologies, what beliefs, what parts of our society that seem so permanent right now will future generations look back on as just another obsolete ruin in the great scrap heap of history?